Okay, we're going to talk about quadratic functions and quadratic equations. This is the general form of a quadratic function, whereas this is the quadratic general form of a quadratic equation. I would suggest writing it down. Yes. What is the difference between these two? One of them is equal to 0. Which one's equal to 0? Okay. I would write that down. The difference between these two is that a quadratic equation is set equal to 0. Why? Because we want to find the zeros. Why is it set equal to 0? And the answer is because we want to find the zeros. Okay? On the Whiny Girlfriend versus Nitro boat, where were the zeros? Okay, the boat and where she hit the water. What are zeros again, you guys, on the graph? The x-intercepts, okay? X-intercepts are the zeros, right? That video I showed you was actually suggested by the school district that we show that to you to explain the zeros so you'd remember them. So that's why I showed you that. I don't know if it helps you, but if it does, good. Okay. Now, that's what we have. We're finding zeros. So, you guys, we can be given a quadratic function like this, and if we want to find the zeros, we just replace f of x with what? 0. Okay? Now, moving along right here, there are 5 ways to solve a quadratic equation. I want you to know all 4 ways. 5 ways. Number 1, by graphing. If I was going to solve one by graphing, I would graph it. And what would I be checking for? What would I be looking for? Where it crosses the x-axis, the zeros, right? The x-intercepts. However, is it possible that a parabola will not have zeros? Yes, okay, and so that's why we have to have other methods. Also, by graphing, the answers are not always exact. They're approximations. Sometimes you can make them exact, depending on what they are, but sometimes they're going to be just approximations. And it can be tedious and long sometimes, and so it's not always the fastest way. Okay, another method is by factoring. We've been learning how to factor quadratics, right? And when you factor quadratics, you can set it equal to 0, and you can find the zeros. For example, if I had x squared plus, let's say, 5x plus 6 equals 0, what does that factor to be? Okay, 2 and 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 plus 3 is 5, right? So that factors would be x plus 2 times x plus 3. And since I'm looking for the zeros, this is called the zero product property. If you have a factor times a factor equal to 0, the only way that can happen is if one of the factors is 0. So how would I make this factor 0? negative 2, right? Negative 2 plus 2 would be negative 2 plus 3 would be 1. 0 times 1 is 0, right? Or how do I make this factor? Negative 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0, and negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 times 0 would be 0. And so the way we do that is we set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. If it's a more complicated one, these you can just look at and tell what they are. But we have those, and we've learned that method, right? So everybody understand that? Okay, that's the second method. Okay, method 3. This one is by taking the square root. Of both sides. For example, let me show you this one right here. Let's say I had x squared minus 16 equals 0. I can actually do this one either by factoring or by solving, getting x by itself on one side. If I was to do this one by getting x by itself on one side, what would I do? I would first of all do what? Add 16, right? So I would add 16 to both sides. That would give me x squared equals 16. And then I would do what to both sides? Square root both sides. And that would give me x equals plus or minus 4. Because there's actually, if you think about x squared equals 16, I can either square 4 and get 16 or negative 4 and square and get 16. Anytime you're solving an equation where you have to take the square root of x squared, you're going to get two answers, a positive and a negative. So those are the two answers. Another one that's similar to this is if I had something like this, where 10 is not a perfect square, is it? So once again, I add 10 to both sides. I take square root of both sides, and I would get plus or minus what? The square root of 10. Okay? And we just leave the answer like that. Or you can write it as a decimal depending on what it's asking for. Okay? Does that make sense? So that is by taking the square root. I think you guys knew these three methods already, right? In a way, we've kind of talked about them. Okay, the fourth and fifth method is what we're going to be talking about in the next few classes. Okay, and the next method, number 4, is called completing the square. And the fifth method is called the quadratic formula. Okay? Now, we learned how to complete the square to put a quadratic in vertex form, but you can also use it to solve a quadratic equation. And I'm going to show you that in just a second right here. What time is it? Okay, we're going to do this fast. Don't write this down. Just watch. Okay? Because, for one thing, I'm not going to make you do them by completing the square, but I need you to understand something about completing the square that will help you understand where we get the quadratic formula from. So I just want you to watch this part. Let's say I gave you x, let's go 2x squared minus 8x plus 5, okay? Let's say we had something like that equals 0. We are going to solve this equation for x. We're going to get x all by itself. And to do that, we are going to take the first two terms and factor out the 2. And at the same time, we're going to minus the 5 to the other side. All right? How do I complete the square here? You guys, what number is going to go there? 4. Take half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4. I also have to what? Minus 4, but that's really an 8 because 2 times 4 is 8. So I minus 8, right? Actually, whatever I do to one side, I do the other. So since it's on the other side, I'm adding 8. Got that? Because it's on the other side. Whatever I do to one side, I added 8 to this side, so I'm going to add 8 to this side because it's on the other side of the equal sign. Okay? And so we're going to get x minus 2 squared. You guys see that that's a perfect square trinomial. Factors will be x minus 2 times x minus 2 equals 3. Okay, I'm going to divide by 2, right? So I get x minus 2 squared equals 3 over 2. Then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Do you see that? And I'm going to get x minus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 3 halves. And then I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I'm going to get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 halves. And that's my answer. That's called completing the square. Now, we kind of use this method to derive what we call the quadratic formula. So I want you to just watch this right here and tell me what to do on this. I'm going to give you this formula right here, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We're going to complete the square on this, and when we're all done, we're going to have what's called the quadratic formula. Okay? And then we're going to use this to solve equations. Okay, what did we do on the first one? What do we have to do first? We got to factor out an a, right? So it's going to be x squared plus b over ax. Leave a space, and we're going to minus c to the other side, right? How do I get the number that goes right here? Take half of b over a. What's half of b over a? b over 2a, right? If you times 1/2 times b over a, you're going to times the bottom by 2. Square that. What are you going to get? b squared over 4a squared, right? b squared over 4a squared. Now, I added it to this side, so I also have to add it to the other side, right? And I gotta times this a by that, and that's going to cancel out one of the a's. So really what I'm going to add to the other side is b squared over 4a. So b squared over 4a. Everybody got that? Okay. Now, this is a perfect square trinomial. This factors to be x plus, what's the square root of b squared plus over 4a squared, you guys? b over 2a squared equals, and over there we're going to get a common denominator. I've got to put a 4a under this, so I've got to times that by 4a. So it's a negative 4ac over, or plus b squared, all over 4a. Okay? That gives us a common denominator. I'm going to divide by a, or times both sides by 1 over a. And so these are going to cancel out. I'm going to get x plus b over 2a squared equals, I'm going to switch those two around so it says b squared minus 4ac. And then a times a is a squared, right? And then we are going to take, what are we going to do next? We're going to take the square root of both sides. You guys, I don't want you freaking out right now because you don't have to remember how to do this. What I want you to understand is that the way we derive formulas, and we do it by solving for things like this. The b squared minus 4ac is not a perfect square. And by the way, it's plus or minus. Remember how when we take the square root of something that's squared, we got to do plus or minus? That's b squared minus 4ac all over, what's the square root of 4? And what's the square root of a squared? So it's going to be 2a. And then we're going to subtract the negative, or the b over 2a from both sides. Yeah, I did. Sorry. That's 4ac up there. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then I'm going to subtract that from both sides. I'm going to get negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, you'll notice that the denominators are both the same. And so we are going to combine that to be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, you guys, guess what this is? Yeah. Everybody, get out your pencil and pen and write this down. This is something you want on your 3x5 card. This is called the quadratic formula. Okay? You're going to be using this the rest of your math careers. For some of you guys, it might be your whole life. Okay? All you engineers out there, you scientists, you doctors, you'll only have to use it up through your calculus. To become a doctor, you have to take calculus. So you know. Okay? You chemistry majors, you guys are all going to need to know this. Okay. Now, not only do you have to know this, but you guys have to memorize this. And to memorize it, we are going to learn a song. Okay? Are you guys ready? We're going to sing a song before we go. I'm going to sing it first. You guys listen. Shh. Alex, listen. You can put a dance to it if you want, but I'm not a good dancer. I'm not a good singer either, but I'm going to sing it for you anyway. Ready? And then you guys are going to sing it. You guys all know the song Pop Goes the Weasel? Yes. We're going to sing it to that tune. Here it goes. Ready? X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You guys ready? We're going to all sing it together. 1, 2, ready, sing. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Wait. We've got 30 seconds left. We're going to sing it one more time. Oh, you guys got to sing it well, or I'm going to give you homework. Ready? Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a.